going to talk about autism spectrum disorders. This has become a common problem because they've noticed a 10 to 17% rise in autism in the last year alone. First of all, can anybody tell me what's wrong with this child?
Looks like Down syndrome.
Yes, affected with Down syndrome. Has a characteristic chin. This child is a victim of cerebral palsy. Next we have hydrocephalus, more commonly known as a water baby. Birth defects, this child was born without any extremity. Muscular dystrophy. Cleft lip, cleft palate. And then we have this child. Can anybody tell me what is wrong with this child? She looks pretty normal. Right, play with a toy. Or this little boy. Probably looks like I did over a salad and a glass of water at that age. And this little girl, she seems to be attentive, but the truth is, they're affected by autism. Autism, as aforementioned, is on the rise 10 to 17% as of last year. It's a severe developmental disability that affects children from birth up to 3 years of age. It belongs to a collection of developmental disorders known as autism spectrum disorders because there's 3 types and they're very similar and very broad. You have your first type, which is autistic disorder, also known as your classic autistic disorder. It's the most severe and it poses major language delays, trouble with social interactions, and unusual behaviors or repetitive behaviors. Your second type is Asperger's syndrome. It's a milder version of the classic autism, just with milder symptoms. They usually don't display so much problems with social interaction or language delays. Your last is pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified, also known as PDD-NOS. It's the mildest version, and it seems to be very hard to detect. You may have some of the qualities of the others, but not all. There's 3 major characteristics about autism that classify it. Your first being social interaction. From early infancy, children coo and they smile. They can notice you when you walk in, follow you with their eyes, grasp a finger, but these children don't seem to be that way. They seem separated. They don't pay as much attention to everybody. They also seem like they don't connect with their parents like other children do. They just seem away from everything, for the lack of a better word. They're very shy. It seems like they show little interest in human contact whatsoever. The next is verbal and nonverbal communication. A lot of these children have problems with sensory. They can hear a certain noise, like a telephone ringing, and it makes them cover their ears up and scream because it hurts. You can touch them and they'll want to come out of their clothes. I mean, these children can have some serious sensory problems. And as far as verbal communication goes, a lot of times their body language does not match up with what they're saying. Their facial expressions don't match up with what they're saying. They may seem joyful at telling something sad. And they're also known for speaking in monotones or using the classic robot language. The last of the 3 characteristics is repetitive or unusual behaviors. These children, some of them, they go through different degrees. Some of them aren't as severe as others, as we'll discuss later, but some of these children have patterns that they like to do. Some children will memorize a train schedule if they live close to a railroad track, or they have their certain patterns, like they get up at the same time every day, they eat breakfast, the same breakfast every day, they take a bath at the same time, they take the same route to school at the same time every day, and if you mess with this just a little bit, it'll throw them way off kilter. It'll bother them so bad. Like a little girl lining up her cars that's autistic. If somebody comes over and knocks one of her cars out of place, it can just ruin her whole day. And it bothers them. And 10% of these children have extraordinary abilities in either math, music, art, or the large majority of them have an extraordinary ability in science. The causes of this is generally unknown. They have their, theories and ideas on what causes autism, but they really have no links. They believed for a long time that the MMR vaccine was a huge link because of the mercury in it, they thought that it had some effects on children being born with autism. Through several studies, they found no link whatsoever. Rubella or German measles in the mother actually has produced several children with autism. This is found to be significant to them, and they're doing further research to find out why. Fragile X syndrome, also known as the most commonly inherited mental retardation. They can't find many links with it, but a lot of these children that have autism also have this Fragile X syndrome. Encephalitis or brain inflammation is another problem that seems to occur more prevalently in these children. The diagnosis is simple. Your parents are the first ones to notice a change in these children, to notice that they're so far away and don't care for much human interaction or act strange, have repetitive behaviors. So they'll take them to the doctor. This is called a well child checkup. This is step one of a two-step process where the doctor compares the children's learning capacity and how far along they've progressed as compared to normal children. And if it's delayed and they think that there's reason to go on and have them checked out further, they'll send them for a comprehensive diagnostic evaluation using a psychiatrist, a neurologist, just any doctors that they use to diagnose us with. There's no real prevention for this, but the norm, as in no drugs, no alcohol, and they don't want mothers to take anticonvulsants. Another thing noticed with these children is health problems. 1 in 4 of these children with autism have seizures. To fix this, commonly they prescribe anticonvulsants such as Depakote and Topamax. Those are the most common ones. Sensory problems, as before mentioned, loud noises or just a gentle touch. Mental retardation is a problem with these children with Fragile X syndrome. Typically, they treat all this with drugs, SSRIs or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, used for anxiety, depression, or OCD. The most common ones, Zoloft. Antipsychotics for their behavioral problems, Haldol, Geodone, Zyprexa. Those are your most common ones. And your ADHD or hyperactivity, they generally prescribe Ritalin. Now, the prognosis for this is generally pretty good. Whereas 30 years ago, they'd shut them away in an asylum. But today you have people like Bill Gates. He had Asperger's syndrome, and he's the wealthiest man that I know. Don't think it's changed any lately. And also, Albert Einstein was diagnosed with autism after his death, of course. They've only looked at his brain to define this. And that's a new frontier that they're exploring, is checking out the brain, because they think that it has some link with what's going on in the brain as to having autism. But as aforementioned, this is on the rise, and I think that everyone should become more aware of it. And there are many websites like Autism Speaks and My Child Without Limits that allow you to make donations to help in the research and give your input and learn as much as you can. That's all I have.